Every world starts as a single thread. That thread adds to another, and they weave, and they move, and they flow, thread after thread, slowly creating a tapestry on which the story is built. Each thread is unique, and thus each tapestry is distinguishable by its many unique features, but also some of its hidden secrets that you wouldn't know they're there at initial glance. Worlds are made up of many different things. They can be made up of magic and matter. They could be made of brick and iron. They could be made of people, of places, of creatures and animals, flora and fauna, waning and waxing, with poetic decadence. Building a world isn't an easy task, but each world is a wonder to behold, a wonder to uplift, and a wonder to experience, not only for the first time, but every time thereafter. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the first Read with Spree podcast, where I will be giving out writing advice, because I'm too lazy to do it in a full video. Also, I'm having issues with my camera cutting out on me, so that's not fun. But anyways, welcome to the first Read with Spree podcast. Today we're going to be going over world building. World building is an essential part of writing in many fantasy and adventure kind of novels. So we're going to kind of go over today different ways to world build. So if you like this podcast style, let me know. I will probably be doing other writing tips in the future in this style, and if you like it, let me know. It's a little easier for me because then I don't have to get work and sync my camera. Anywho, so today we're going to be talking about world building. So creating a world is a difficult task for any writer. There's so many different facets you need to cover, from religion to terrain to architecture, flora and fauna, mythology, and so on. Many people will usually say the opposite of this. For example, if I were to ask you to create a world in your head and you pick a world of mermaids with rainbow fish and dancing with whales, we can see that clearly in our heads, and if we tell others, they can see it clearly in their head. But that's all it is, an image, like a 2D representation of a 3D object. Writing worlds is similar in fashion. You can easily say you live near a beach and have 6 smoothie joints along the boardwalk. It's creative. It's a start. But it's flat. Now, I want to be clear that 2D worlds are not bad. In fact, they're very important. One must use those 2D facets to create a 3D shape. Think I'm making a cube with a paper. It's kind of a similar process. When I see people new to writing or new to creating sprawling worlds, I often see people drown in details. They make massive lists, constantly adding new categories because they think of something new that needs to be added. A calendar system, trade systems, technology, magic. And these build and build and build until you don't have a cube anymore, but you have this monstrous mass that no longer can hold its shape because it's simply too much. What is needed for the story? What can be left out? Will it be essential? The questions build with the paper mass, and soon it's unclear what idea you were even working on anymore. World building can be as simple as complicated as you want it to be, but that overwhelming feeling never quite goes away. You'll always have questions about your own work, and that's natural. As a creator, we must assess what we create. So, let's scurry down the rabbit hole together. I'd like to start with a question. What is the first step in creating a world? Where do you begin? There's a myriad of answers, like people, magic, terrain, ecosystems, architecture, or even something simple as they live on the moon. But what if we went back farther? To understand how to create a world, we first need to understand ourselves as a writer. What kind of writer are we? Writers work on a spectrum where one side plans everything down to the tiniest detail to those who make up every letter as they go along.
Most will say they lean one way or another, but I feel most writers are somewhere in the middle. I've been writing for quite some time, and I know I fall in the middle of the spectrum. I've created stories completely out of my bum, and others were written with every single detail planned to a crisp T. However, my writing falls under a bullet point approach where I have events that I want to happen, and everything in the middle is made up as I go. I'm going to focus on the extremes in this podcast, but I know if you're also someone in the middle, you can use techniques from both sides to find your perfect fit. So let's start with the planners. I'm sure you've seen or even been to websites where it breaks down all the details you need in order to make a world. It can be confusing to try and figure out what list you're going to need, and if the list you choose is going to have all the details you need or want. Some make their own lists, and as I mentioned before, balloon their list to ungodly proportions. For one series I write, I have a massive spreadsheet for my characters, and there are far too many categories on there for people to care, such as side characters' parents, favorite traveling items, what hand they're dominant, and so on and so on. It's simply too much. So let's try and peel it back some more. We'll start with what is the overall theme of your story. This should be stated in one or very few words. Mermaids, steampunk, space story romance, green jello. From there we can start to work on the pieces. Start with the words that come to mind when you think about your theme. For this example, let's go with steampunk because I love a good steampunk story. Words that come to mind are Victorian, leather, browns and creams, mechanical, maybe even pirates, airships, or tea. From there we can pull the first strands of world building. Let's go over that list again. We can paint a good idea for a wardrobe with Victorian, leather, and the colors. Even mechanical can be helpful, as some might have mechanical limbs, purses, packs, canes, or hats. Airships can tell us what kind of transportation this world has, and we can also add on the 3 basic ways of traveling: earth, sea, and air. Perhaps instead of cars, people ride the trains, and there's no water travel as trains go through long tunnels under the waves. Pirates, while seeming silly, can help with filling out the question of what sort of dangers there are in this world. Maybe not pirates, but what of train hijacking, as we can build off that transportation perhaps even collapsing tunnels or short-circuiting mechanical devices. Initially, we see tea as a British theme since our fashion is based on Victorian clothes, but perhaps there are other types of tea from places such as China or India. Or what about the earthy teas from Latin and South America? From there we can expand not only our wardrobe, but our food. While the word Victorian is a British term, we can instead use the same time period to look for clothes from other regions. During the same time period in the 1800s to the early 1900s, China was going through a lot of cultural and political growth while also seeing a great deal of war and battles. Their clothes also blossomed as styles of the wealthy were able to be seen amongst the commoners. Or perhaps we look at South America, where Spain spread its territory and created political reform while the native populations vocalized their distastes. They also had railroads that were built to build mining and plantations, worsening the division of the class systems. From there, possibilities are endless. Now that we've expanded, we must also step back and decide, will I stick this information strictly, or will I use this information as a foundation for a system I will be building myself? As we build, we must also ask ourselves, what is unique to this world? Let's look back at our theme and branches. Let's say we decide on steampunk China during the 1800s. What is unique to this? Perhaps airships are shaped like dragons, or the 4 celestial emblems, the white tiger, or Kirin, the red bird, or phoenix, the black tortoise, and the blue-green dragon. The celestial beings can shape a lot of the world, be it that they're gods, the magic stems from them, or the world's divided by their traits, colors, seasons, direction, and element. For those of you who are nerdier, you might be thinking Avatar: The Last Airbender, which, can add all sorts of new ideas. Now, the important part of planning the world is knowing where to stop. It's easy to lose yourself in the details. A good place to start is to pick 6 to 10 world building points that you want present in your writing. What are those elements, and how will they be portrayed and integrated into the story? If you find it hard to write a detail in, ask yourself if the book would change if the detail was not kept in. Would removing it create a butterfly effect? If the answer is no, don't feel like you need to throw that piece of information. It's still a fun detail, but now that bit is a secret for you to know, and perhaps add at a different time, such as in a new draft or a sequel. As you write, you can always add more categories or details and build new mechanics as you go. Simply pause your writing, build what you need, and insert it. Depending on what your preference is, there's a variety of ways you can build your world in an organized fashion. Making bullet points under topic lines in programs like Word. You can also make slides or note cards in programs like PowerPoint or by making actual cards. You can make charts and tables in programs like Word or Excel. You can make a series of folders with image references or sites to visit when you can find a tool assistant to help you stay organized. I've heard good things about Scrivener, and there's always the old-fashioned pencil and paper. I still use it from time to time. Now let's move on to the pantsers. Pantsers is a term that's a nickname for those who write by the seat of their pants, or basically write as you go. Going about world building needs a different approach than the planners because the structure is simply not flexible enough. The first tip for world building is to get messy, particularly with your first draft. It's like building a Lego without a guide. Start by taking a part of the immense Lego pile to lay out some groundwork. Come the second draft, that's where you do your fine-tuning. Replace pieces that don't work or that don't contribute or add enough to the story. Grab new bits to fill in the gaps. Upgrade original parts to better flesh things out. First drafts are supposed to be messy because they are thoughts dumped onto the page, be it paper or virtual paper. Now let's break it down even more. We're going to start our writing with the same question we asked the planners. What is our theme? Let's mix it up and do mermaids this time. As you're writing, think about the details that can add color to the world. A school of fish, an old sea turtle, changing currents, a shipwreck. Think of these details as stuffers, like tucking tissue paper into holes. They're easy to notice, and we can pull the paper back out and expand on it later. From here, your path is going to branch depending on how much you lean towards the pantser side of the spectrum. Some people can expand on details as they delve further into stories. Others will need to take a step back and flesh out the details off screen. It really is going to depend, which I know sounds lame, but it's the truth. The tips I'm going to cover are more towards keeping your world building organized as you pants your way through your writing. First, the second draft. Or third, or fourth. There's no limit to how many drafts you can have. Let's look at those details again. The school of fish. Now we ask what kind of fish. Are they tropical or deep sea? What is the scale of the school, such as is it made of 10 fish or 10,000? The old sea turtle. Perhaps instead of an actual turtle, it's an old carving etched into the underwater stone as part of a mural, or it's a directional or territory marker. Or go beyond the turtles, like the dragon turtles that are the size of islands who live thousands of years. Changing currents can create pathways or roadblocks for your mermaid population. How about the ship? What kind of ship? Is it made of wood, metal, or a new material foreign to the mermaids? Is there a graveyard? How decayed is the ship? What technology was part of the ship that made it functional, such as cannons, radar, missiles, or massive metal spears to tear through boats, whales, and sharks? If you're a Monster Hunter fan, the last feature will sound familiar from the game's Dragonator. The second tip is notes. I'm a huge fan of the review feature in Word and the comment feature in Google Docs. You can use as many of them as you need, and they're great to point out where the world building is lacking and needs building on later. The third tip is make a structured list. I brought up my character chart before, and that was created using the pantser method. As various categories were uncovered, they were added to the chart to further flesh things out. It's great for making potential details or plot points based on those details you tucked away, especially so when it creates a great plot device or plot twist. Now, if you ever want me to do a character building video, let me know. I might make it as a future podcast, but back to the world building. Now, for all the pantsers who struggle to find information or inspiration for the world building, you can do a couple of things. First is find or make a place where you can store inspiration. For me, I use Pinterest. I have several boards to help me with visuals and giving me ideas. You can also find wiki blogs or various websites that inspire you and save them to your internet favorites or create a folder in your computer for images or quotes. And planners, this tip can work for you as well. There's never enough ways to get inspired. So now that we've done a deep dive into how you write, we get to the part where what you should write. One unfortunate aspect we have to touch on is taste. Everyone's going to have a preference on how much information they would like. Some like a lot, others like it more vague. That's just something you're not going to be able to control, but it's good to remember because it helps remove inhibitions we have towards our writing. With that thought in mind, let's delve deeper. As I mentioned earlier in the planning section, information needs to be pertinent to the story in some way. The problem lies in the amount of pertinence needed. Some details are given, like weather, clothes, architecture, language. Others are a bit more gray. For example, I find economy and how basic needs are met, such as how people get water, how does the world provide adequate food, and basic sanitation, to be inherent detailed to my worlds. But for others, they would be more like an afterthought. Other topics such as trade goods, global mapping, unique races, religions, flora, fauna, and finer details to characters or their home's possessions fall into this gray category. I mentioned the butterfly effect earlier, and to those who don't know what it is, it's a theory that if you remove a single butterfly from the past, it can change the entire course of the future as the changed elements compound upon each other. If you'd like a great example of this, I recommend the short story A Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury. You can also see examples in this in Choose Your Own Adventure books, as well as video games with branching paths such as Mass Effect, Detroit Become Human, Knights of the Old Republic, and Until Dawn. For moviegoers, there's Netflix's Black Mirror Bandersnatch. So now we're back to if the details matter. Basic needed information? Yes. Information you, the writer, feels is pertinent to your writing? Yes. Information that would change how the story is written or leave the readers confused at some point because it's not well explained? Yes. Everything else is a big fat no. Which leads to my next topic, and that's info dumping. I actually enjoy a good info dump as long as it doesn't last longer than it's needed and if it's incorporated well into the story. A good rule of thumb is to not info dump on the first chapter. That being said, there are exceptions. One example is a reading of a piece of literature or prophecy or a sign. Another is if you need to focus a reader's attention on a single point that needs emphasis because it has a major impact on the story. If the exceptions do not apply, reel back that info dumping and write it more like info sprinkling. A sentence here to mention how green the trees are this year. A notion, the street upwind of the bakery smells of yeast. Then, as the story gets more underway, implement the dumping. Try not to give too many details at once, try to keep the information relevant to the scene, and do not give complicated world-building pieces back to back or your reader is going to go cross-eyed. Think of it similarly as a book that introduces a ton of characters in the first few chapters of a book. That overwhelming feeling and general confusion, it's the same with info dumping, so please dump with caution. The last bit I want to cover is various pieces of advice I can give to you as a veteran writer. Now everyone's going to have their own bits of advice, so don't say my tips are the end-all be-all. There's always more tips out there, but these are the ones that I could think of. Finding barriers or obstacles for characters within the details of your writing is helpful, such as dehydration, traps, are people new to magic or technology, not speaking the same language, having a gesture or items seen as rude or disgusting for different populations. When using sensory descriptions, elicit a sensory response people have experienced for themselves. The feel of cracking paint to show age, the smell of rotting vegetation next to a pond to show the lack of cleaning, the sight of hundreds of birds overhead to show confusion or unsettlement, the ungodly loud sound of cicadas in the summer to show empathy because good God are they loud. Use other forms of media as a backbone to your own writing. For example, I like to think of my worlds and the areas the characters are exploring as worlds from Kingdom Hearts, or the city layouts or secret passages as maps I'd make for Dungeons and Dragons. Find what inspires you. Use placeholders when you're unsure. This can be as simple as leaving a blank space, a comment bubble, or using something you know from the real world to replace it later. I tend to use Dungeons and Dragons monsters as placeholders for races and creatures I'll refine later. I can't take credit for this part, but I don't remember what Tumblr used it set it, but use a strange word or letter combination as placeholders such as elephant or JJQQXX, so when you use the search function, it's easier to find. For those of you who don't know what the search function is, it's a way you can go through the entire document looking for specific words that you want. It's a fast way of looking through your content. You can do this both in Word and you can do this online. It is Control F for you less technical keyboard warriors out there. Very helpful tool, also helpful for research. So Control F, everybody. Read about something you didn't know before. Also read books with similar worlds, mechanics, or themes to the world you're trying to create. If you need to write a fan fiction first, that's okay. Fan fiction is a great way to build something with characters and settings you already know. It's like putting together IKEA furniture. I might do another podcast down the line on the positives of fan fiction, as maybe another one on the negatives of fan fiction, because I think it's actually a really interesting topic to discuss in the world of reading and writing. Because it has a lot of points in contention to it, of whether you're pro or con fan fiction. But we'll save that for another time. Don't force yourself to love something you hate. If there's an element in your world building that's not working or you just flat out hate, change it. It's not worth the emotional frustration. Be flexible with your work. When changing details, always keep past versions in mind as you create new ones. Sometimes it's fun to call back on a previous version of something, or you can make a cool plot thread / conversation on how something used to be one way and had to change due to political or societal pressure. If you get stuck, like really stuck, it's okay to walk away. Work on another writing project or do some editing or take a few days off to let your brain reload. Talk things out with a friend, family member, or beta reader if you're not sure if any idea is working. As you explain it, especially verbally, it's easier to find the faults and feedback is helpful from other people. Brainstorm or use someone as a sounding board. Sometimes you have to throw the whole pot of spaghetti to get one noodle to stick, but when it's that right noodle, boy does it feel good. Working on a sequel or find yourself needing to change information in a previous book? Unless it's already published, go for it. As a writer, you can change the story as many times as you need to. I have 7 drafts of one of my books, and it keeps getting updated. This can also be helpful if you move forward to sequels, if your story has a sequel, because then you can refine details you mentioned in the past or allude to future details, the whole wink wink nudge nudge. Have fun with your worlds. If you enjoy making it, we'll enjoy reading it. And because this meme makes me laugh and sings to my bones, there you go. The garbage will do. I hope you found this helpful in some way. Writing's not an easy feat, and as a beta reader and mentor to students in real life, I want to be able to help writers, both new and old, to write the stories they want to tell. If you have questions or you like anything clarified or if you want help to spitball ideas, let me down in the comments sections. I'd love to hear from you guys. Especially if you have any good writing tips or any tips for world building, because everyone loves tips. Tips for days. Plus, I might find some tips in there that I might like to use. Anyway, if you like this video or this podcast, consider giving it a big old thumbs up or share it with a friend or a fellow writer. Consider giving the subscribe button a tippy tap if you'd like to see more bookish content. Let me down in the comments if there's a video I'd like to see in the future, especially in this podcast series where I go over writing, be it like characters, setting, research, anything at all. If you got something you want me to cover, let me know. Check out my social media for reading, writing, and nerdy content. If you'd like to read my own writing, I'll leave links in the description for my Wattpad account. And if you want to see what I've been reading, check out my Goodreads. I'm also on Instagram, although I don't post super often because I'm really bad at Instagram. I'm sorry. I also have a second channel where I do crafty and nerdy things. There's not a lot on there. That's okay. Don't feel like you need to subscribe. Lastly, I want to thank you all for listening. This was a pretty big project. I had a lot of difficulties with recording it, and I appreciate all your love and support for putting these together. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening and sharing. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Take care and happy writing. Bye!